All right. What's up? It's been a minute. I myself, we're going to talk about living wage and minimum wage, and I perhaps should change this to just chatting because we're not going to make any art right now. We're just going to like talk about what you need to get paid, or what you need, the kind of information that you need to hire a colorist and hire a line artist, for your comic, and like what that should look like what you should reasonably expect to pay. um it's kind of like a really tough question because like everybody's situation is different. Some of us have we start talking about how colors are overpaid. No, everyone's situation is different. Some people have student loans, some people don't. Some people live in places that have, high rent. Some people don't. Like, so it's, everything's kind of different and subjective. Some people have kids, some people don't. So a lot of the specifics are not going to be exactly maybe like to your tune, and I urge you to take the data that I'm going to give you and kind of like apply it to your situation and like sit down and think about what you actually need and what your budget entails. But yeah, let's get into it. So we're also gonna do some art eventually, so it's been so long since people it's been a long time since I've streamed. So before we get started with this, and I'm just sipping on some coffee, I'm adjusting the microphone here. It's been a long time since I've streamed. Sorry about that. I'm trying to, and this is in line with what we're going to talk about today, which is like getting paid. I'm trying to set up the best situation to stream and also draw comics regularly. I feel like I am very, very close to getting rid of all my back debt, and that my back debt is kind of like instrumental in the decision making that I am personally making. And that's probably true of you too if you are a working artist. Like, you probably, there's going to be times when you're like, I have to take this gig because if I don't, like, I can't make rent or I can't pay my student loans. Student loans is such a big one. So like, let's talk about this. So let's get the calculator out, guys. We're mathing real hard. Okay. So, all right. Let's talk about minimum wage. Is like a really, really an Allman Brothers stream. Come on. Minimum wage is a tough thing to talk about. There's a lot of like people who want to raise the minimum wage, a lot of people who don't want to raise the minimum wage. So I'm gonna talk about like we're gonna enter some of these spaces that we have here are easy to enter because we know what they are. They're fixed things. Minimum wage across the country is, I think, $7.50. From what I could research, it's different in different states. So like, this is pro gamer math, absolutely. So if you're getting on average $7.50, and we are like total back of the napkin, like trying to do this as generally as possible, but as helpful as possible for you. So minimum wage across the country, $7.50, 40 hours a week times 52 weeks in a year. This is what we end up with. 15.6K. So let's move this because we gotta do some mark making now. So minimum wage, 15,600. That's what minimum wage looks like. Now, to divide that into monthly, and we're talking like $725 is federal minimum. What the fuck, America? Yeah, tell me about it. So, okay, a lot of comics work as like a monthly system. You get hired for a book. Like I'm on Nightwing right now. Nightwing pays me every month. I work on a book. I get paid. You know, like it's a monthly kind of system. So we're gonna assume in order to make the numbers like easier to work with, we're gonna go monthly. So we're gonna divide this by 12. That's $1,300 monthly. So that's minimum wage monthly income. Now, here's something we're gonna fill out like all the rest of this right now. The rent percent is a big thing. So what is the rent percent? The rent percent is how much of your paycheck should you be spending on rent? And the answer to that is around 30%. We're going to do 33%. Well, 33.3. We're going to do a third just because it makes the math a little bit easier. It's a couple percentage points. And when we're talking about $15,000, a couple of percentage points isn't going to be that big of a deal. Are you laughing because we're talking about average rent and spending 30% of rent, 30% of your money on rent? This is the ideal, like the ideal situation is to spend 30%. Yeah. Oh, you're laughing because you're already jumping ahead to like what the minimum wage kind of situation is. So, okay, here is one bedroom, and like I want you to be successful in the arts. I want you to be armed with the information that you need in order to do things like, you know, raise a family without roommates, like things like that. Like that's what I want for you. I want that for anybody. When we look at this map of like average one bedroom rents, like you can see like, you know, like New Mexico's 576. That's very low. You look at DC and it's 2,358. That's very high. I was thinking about sticking with Florida, just doing like 1,100. Florida is where I'm from. I think that's like kind of the average when I look at this map. Like it's not like crazy high like Massachusetts, and it's also because Boston exists in Massachusetts, and it's also not crazy low like South Dakota, you know? So if you are living in these places, obviously it's going to affect like what percent this is. So we're going to say that you want 1,100 for your rent percent. So we're just going to jot that in. This is the goal right here. What's it say for New Jersey? It's too small for you to make out. New Jersey, 1,355. I assume New York City and Philadelphia are semi-boosting that rent. Here, I'll drop the link into the chat though, so you guys can see this. Sounds about right. Yeah, like I don't think this is wrong for Florida. That's probably about right. And you know, there's different percents for when we scroll down in here, 2-bedroom, like, so like Gainesville had like a move in 2-bed in Athens, Georgia, and you know, like, so and this is something that goes up and down. The market bears what it can bear. But we're just gonna go with $1,100 for rent. And the reason that I picked that number is it might seem a little high to you. I know that when I started doing comic book coloring, I lived with 3 other people. I was not spending $1,000 on rent. I was spending like $250 on rent because I was living with 3 or 4 other people in like the hood of Philadelphia, and like it was a cheap rent. So like, please just bear with me with this. I want to talk about not like how do you the idea of what I want is like, okay, you are able to be sustainable in a nice place and be able to make art, not like live in the hood of Philadelphia or like South Dakota. I don't know why I'm calling out South Dakota real hard, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want you in the middle of nowhere. I don't want you in a bad situation. I don't want you like with 400 roommates, you know? So this is what it's going to take. So, like we said before, 30% is the magical number. So like, what does minimum wage get us? Let's figure that out. Minimum wage gets us, what is this? 15 divided by 3. That's what we get for the year, divided by 12. That's what we get per month. So already we're seeing a problem. Well, we can do, let me make sure that this number works. So 1,300 monthly divided by 3. Yeah, same number. So we get $433. And keep in mind too, so this is, my point with all of this is that this number for the minimum wage for your rent percent is like well under what you should be shooting for to like build a life and be a normal human being with a, you know, significant other, you know, getting married, things like that, raising a family. Like 433 is well below where you want to be for that. Now we can drop in our goal here, this number right here. And from there, we can kind of like extrapolate the rest of this, the living wage. So say we have 1,100. We multiply that times 3, and we get our monthly income. We multiply that times 12, and we get our yearly income. We're just shy of 40K. And now I just want to say, like, you look at these numbers, and we haven't even started to talk about like how we're going to get the colorist page rate and the line artist page rate. But you look at these numbers, and it's really, really discouraging. Because like these two should not be so far apart. Like I started crunching these numbers a couple of days ago, and like on Twitter, people have been talking about page rates for colorists and page rates for books. And on I received a couple of emails just coincidentally asking for like, what's a good rate for a colorist? And so I figured this was a good thing to talk about. And then I started thinking about like just minimum wage in general, and I'm like, holy smokes, like it is so tough. Even if you double, even if instead of working 40 hours, you work 80 hours in 5 days, you're still not hitting like the living wage. Like you have to work, you know, 3 times as hard. So you have to work 120 hours in 5 days in order to hit like your rent percent, the ideal rent percent. So here's the thing. 40K is what you always felt was comfortable for you, a single childless guy. Yeah, I agree. I think under 12K you don't even pay taxes. It's under 10, I think. Yeah. So, and we're talking pre-taxes. Taxes with jobs in art is like a whole other discussion. When you become an artist, the first thing you want to do is set up an S corp, because like otherwise the freelancer tax is going to like run roughshod over you. You want to be a corporation. You don't want to be a individual. because it's just going to be really, really hard on you. I got into tax debt for a long time because of this. But that's a whole other discussion, and something that I'm not super comfortable and knowledgeable about. So we're going to talk about like what a colorist does in one day. So like, let's say you're putting together a book. We're finally getting to the part where you're like, yeah, what should I pay people? Let's say you're putting together a book, and you want to pay your colorist, you want to pay your line artist, and you're not trying to cheat them. You're trying to pay them what they deserve. Something to consider when you're putting together a book is how many pages can a colorist do in a month, and you want that. You're going to figure out the rate by like, okay, you need X amount of monthly income. You can do X amount of pages in a month. You just take that and divide it. So for me, what I think is normal for a colorist is 80 pages a month. I can comfortably do, and that's full time. This is, well, let me catch up on chat for a second. Based on salary, I don't even know how someone would afford unless they have no intention of ever paying anything but rent, food, and internet and nothing else. Lots of ramen. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Like, even at 40K, it's still tough. Like, when I say 40K pays $1,100 in rent, I'm talking like you're scraping by. Like you're a couple bad paychecks away from disaster. And when we start to talk about colorist page rate and line artist page rate, there's a couple of things that I want to keep in mind. I'm talking about ideal situations, meaning, colorists, if we're doing 80 pages a month, we're doing one book a week, which means we always have one book a week to work on. That isn't always the case. We get paid every week from every book that we work on. That isn't always the case. A lot of times you got to chase down people. It's a rough industry, and you have to hoard money like a goddamn dragon in order to like future-proof yourself from those situations where you need to chase down somebody for a check when like something like happens. And this happens, I will tell you, this happens not only with small press companies, but with larger press companies. And it might not even be their fault. So let me tell you a story about, like, real quick. I received a check, or I got cut a check in the mail from DC, and through no fault of their own, it got stuck in some sort of equipment in the mail system, and I never received it. They kept insisting that they cut the check. I kept insisting that I never got it. I asked if it was cashed. They said no. So like they cut me another check. I got it fine. I cashed it. It's fine. I shit you not, months later, maybe a full year later, I get that check in the mail, slightly crumpled, and with a stamp on it that says "lost in machinery." Like, sometimes you can't plan for these kinds of things. Yeah, I'm talking super averages cross contour. I'm also getting phone calls. So, okay. Ideal situation for a colorist is to get 80 pages in 1 month. That's like kind of what I can handle. A comic book issue is 20 pages. I can usually do a book and corrections within 1 week. Sometimes you have to go faster. Sometimes you got to go slower. Sometimes books overlap. You do more than 80. Sometimes books end and you do less than 80. But we're talking about like, general kind of page rate. When I talk about line artists, now I'm not a line artist. I'm a colorist. But I think that we can figure out based on my interactions with line artists and waiting for pages, I'm pretty sure that we can figure out the numbers for the line artists as well, which will arm you if you are writing a comic and you're trying to figure out what to pay people. A line artist, in my experience, now Nightwing is a different case. Nightwing comes out every month regardless. So Nightwing's doing 20 pages a month, penciled and inked. And we're going to talk with the line artist. We're going to assume that they are inking themselves. Now, the reason that Nightwing can come out every month is because people will do 4 or 5 issues and then they will take a break, and somebody else will do 4 or 5 issues and then they will take a break, and then somebody else will do 4 or 5. I've done less than 20 issues of Nightwing, and I've worked with 4 artists, I believe. So you want to keep in mind that if you're working on building your like artisanal comic book, that you're like, you know, pitching to places, or like, you know, a lot of some of the books, the amount of time, the quick turnaround that quickest turnaround I've seen from line artists is about 1 month for a full book. The longest is about 10 weeks. So we're going to assume, and 10 weeks is a long time, but you know, people do what they're able to do. And like that will affect like how much they should be receiving per page. We're going to do, say, 6 weeks per issue, which makes it about 14 pages per month. $14 pages per month for the line artist. Now, if you're putting together your book and you're trying to like make all this work, there's something going on here, which is the colorist is cranking out work. The line artist is working on one thing. And I wanted you to keep that in mind. Like, if these are calendar months, we're making calendar months here. The line artist is like issue 1 done, issue 2 done, issue 3 done, issue 4 done. We're going to assume 6 issues. Issue 5 done. Issue 6 done. Yeah, Travis Charest 1 page a week. Mark Bagley 22 pages a week. Yeah, I mean, it varies. You just gotta, once you figure out that number, like when people ask, what should I pay a colorist? That's not really what they're asking. What they're asking is, what's the average amount of pages a colorist can do a day, and we can figure out how much you should pay based on that. So like this is a normal timeline, and you are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You are at 9 months for the penciler to work on a project. When you're the colorist, you're going to be working at month 10 because you're going to be doing issue 6 at month 10, but you're going to be doing 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you're planning out your project and you're like, I can't pay the line artist and the colorist at the same time, it's fine for a little while. Like, you can do the first 3 issues of just the penciler before you even think about hiring a colorist. And it's going to take 10 months to get through the thing. It's going to take 10 months to be like, I've finished the script and I'm ready to go, like, to finalize. So, okay, let's get the calculator back out. Let's math this shit up. All right. So, based on 80 pages, we have a goal of, our minimum wage goal of $1,300. Now, you would think, divided by 80 pages, boom, done. We're wrapped up, right? $16.25. That's minimum wage. It is not, because a colorist has an extra built-in pain in the butt of, like, they are in charge to subcontract out flatting. Like, I can't do 80 pages in 1 month if I don't get a flatter. And that is a person that just, like, preps the pages, and they like they put the flat color down, and we actually have a flat right here. This is by Art Germ. We're gonna work on this because it's way outside of my comfort zone. I don't normally work on art like this, but this is all the flat color. He's done all this for us already. So a flatter usually requires about $15 a page. I've seen some a little more, some a little less, but usually about $15 a page. So if we take $15 per page out of this, we're left with $1.25. And let me tell you, no one is surviving on $1.25 per page. That is absurd. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, can I pay them $16.25 and then they can flat themselves? No, because then our 80 pages isn't 80 pages anymore. Our 80 pages, because they have to flat themselves, they might only be able to do one book a month because they have to do it from start to finish. And then you're at 1,300 divided by 20. You're at $65 a page. So instead, basically what you need to do to figure this out is 1,300, 80 pages in a month, plus 15. And this is like the minimum wage. This is the equivalent of minimum wage. You just saw on Facebook that $1.25 per page is good. Burn Facebook to the ground. So in order to get $433 and live with a bunch of roommates, what was this number? I lost this number. $31.25. We are at $31.25. And this is average page rate. If you are a colorist and you're like, no one's paying me $31.25, like $31.25 is a ridiculous number. How many experience points a month do you get? Come on. How many exposure points do you get per month? So like this number is average. So what this means is like if you're working on 4 books, 80 pages a month, you're working on a 30, a 30, a 30, and a 40 per page. And that way, like on average, you're getting $31.25. I don't know if that average totally adds up, but it's close. So yeah, so this is about where you want to be for that. So let's back it up. And like we haven't, there are things that you have to do as a colorist, which is like maintain a computer, like buy equipment, things like that. Like we aren't going to touch any of that stuff. I just want to talk about like broad strokes. For the line artist, to just get $750, like flipping burgers, no experience necessary, like just hire a guy to do it. It's going to cost, what were we at? 14 pages. So $92.86. And the reason I say, no experience necessary is like, this is what kind of minimum wage is. Like when we start to figure out the living wage, the thing that I want to communicate to you is that the living wage and the minimum wage, first of all, isn't living wage. And secondly, the living wage is the bottom of the barrel price. Like you get what you pay for when it comes to colorists. And if you want to make a quality book, you want to make a quality comic, you got to pay, you got to compete with higher rates to compete with top talent. If you're looking to just hire somebody, what's retirement wage? More than this. Put in the tax. Well, okay. This is the thing is the whole thing hinges on the rent percent. And as much as I'd like to put in the taxes, the rent percent is based on non-taxable income. This is according to the internet. So I will say that like I did some Googling and I was like, how much should you spend on rent? And it's like, yeah, this is like real complicated. Hey Ron, what's up, man? uh, so okay, so let's say we're trying to figure out our Colorist page rate for living wage. We have 3,300. That's the goal for the month. That's how much we're trying to make. And we're dividing by 80 pages. 41.25 seems right? No, we got to add the 15. The Colorist has got to pay that flatter, and it can't come out of their check, because if it comes out of their check, they're not going to make ends meet. So 56.25 is where we're at for the living wage for a colorist. If you are paying below 56.25, first of all, if you're paying below the 31.25 of minimum wage, like, you're a monster. And if you're paying below the 56.25, then what you're communicating is like, the colorist doesn't have to have a living wage, and you're like, I don't care about the experience, I don't care what it looks like, I just want it done and I want it to have color on it. That's what you're saying. And you have to be, if you're going to pay that $31.25, you have to be okay with the book looking however it's going to look. Like, because you're going to get, that's where the bottom is. That's where the bare knuckle bottom of it is. Of the skill level and of, whatever. With the line artist of 14 pages per month, let's figure that out. I've already screwed this up. 3,300 divided by 14. 235, 70, we'll say 72. 235, 72. Now, this number, these line artist page numbers, whereas the colorists, we can talk about like an average, because it's multiple projects that are averaged together. The line artist page rate is not that. So like, what I would say is like, this isn't 92.86. This is just straight up 95 a page. This isn't 235.72. This is like 240 per page. Don't some studios pay below 56.25? Absolutely. I have seen, part of the reason why I wanted to do this, like, and take time with this and show you the numbers and show you why it should be like this, is because I want you to understand that you should not take below 56.25. If you are a living human being who is in a house and you are trying to make ends meet, you will not make ends meet below 56.25. Like, it's really incredibly difficult. And let me get into this just real quick. So you have $3,300. Let me just run through some stuff that you guys, and we're gonna be like, kind of like line art is something like final inking. Yeah, so my line art pages are penciled inked. This discussion was on another colorist Discord yesterday, and many of them were happy below this. So here's what I think is happening. I think that a lot of younger talent, and I did this, and this is why I think this is happening. A lot of younger talent is trying to get into the industry, and they don't know how shit works. Like, it's really, really difficult when you're like into art and you're into making things. You don't think a lot about the business side of things. You don't think about like, how do I make this? Like, you can absolutely take below 31.25. You can. You will not be in the industry for very long. Like, you will take 31.25. You will work for 6 months. You will be like, this doesn't work. I'm fucking out. Like, I'm trying to give you like, this is what is sustainable for a career in art. Ignorance is bliss. Yeah. This is the thing, is like, So let's run through. Okay, let's run through the minimum wage parameters. Okay, of $31.25. You're spending $1,300. You're spending $433 on rent, right? 1,300 minus 433, and this is, we're down to $867. This is, and I don't mean to stress you out with these numbers because that's not my goal. I just want to arm you. This is like, I know that a lot of people would look at $867 and be like, that's a lot of money. And it is. But like, you start to be like, okay, cell phone, $75, utilities, 150, let's say student loans, 100. Oh, shit. Healthcare for yourself. Don't ever get sick, apparently, because healthcare is going to be $500. And guess what? You got $42 to spend on food for the rest of the month. And you got to squirrel away some of that for retirement. And you better not, your computer better not ever break down, because if it does, you need a new computer. So it's like, this can't work like long term. And like, I'm not even, like some of your cell phone plans might be a little more than that. And like, I haven't even factored in travel to Comic Cons to continue to get work. Like, Photoshop is coming out of that. Yeah, exactly. Photoshop, Netflix, like whatever. Like, you can live bare bones, but there is a limit to like what you are like able to do. Even with, 3,300 minus 111 for rent, minus 500 for your own healthcare, 150 for utilities, 75 for your phone. You're down to like 1475. I'm not even taking into account that life gets in the way sometimes. Like, you're down to 1475. You're probably going to spend about $400 in that month on food. You're down to $1,000. Like, my trip to New York Comic Con this year is going to cost $2,000. My, like, if you get a Wacom Cintiq, that's going to be a couple $1,000. Like, if you say you get sick and your shitty health coverage that you're paying $500 a month doesn't cover the ER visit, like, that's going to be $1,000. Like, say you want to like go out on a date or take a vacation, like, you can't, because you can't save enough money. So long as you live rent free, $60 a page seems totally fine. So here's the thing, like, a lot of people live with their parents, and I don't fault any of them for doing that. Like, I wish that I could have been in a situation where I could have lived with my parents longer post college to get my feet, but instead I moved into a place with like, 3 or 4 roommates or whatever in inner city Philadelphia. That was like not a great location. Yeah. So you want to keep all of this in mind. Like, I want to highlight these numbers. Like, look at the difference between this number. This is almost double, and this is more than double for the line artist. Like, $56.25, not to mention the 25 off the top in taxes. Yes, you also have to save for taxes. Like, it is maddening. The reason I want to talk about this is it is maddening how little people are accepting for jobs in comics. Like, and the reason that I want to try to talk to you sincerely and frankly and openly about this is because if you don't take a bare minimum, if you are taking below $30 a page, $31.25, you are not only hurting yourself, you're not only like, not able to make a living, basically. Like, I assume that if you were taking $31.25, you have a day job and you're doing comics on the side. And if that's the case, you're only able to do 1 book a month, and it's just like a little bit extra money. But like, I'm talking about making a living at art. And if you want to do that, wanting a real rate closes doors too. But here's the thing. If you are taking rates that are underneath what the numbers that I'm putting on screen, those aren't doors you want to be in. Like, there is in running a business, there is also this idea that, you know, if you're like, this is what I'm worth, say you work with somebody and you're like, I just want to get my foot in the door. I'm going to take $15 a page. You can do that 100%. Sometimes you just need people to take a chance on you. First book I did for free. I did 6 issues for free, and then I redid the 6 issues before it so it all looked unified. I did 12 issues for nothing. But after I did those, I didn't do any fucking more for nothing. Like, I'm not your guy that's going to get hired at no money per page. I'm going to be your guy that's hired at $60 a page. Because, like, my skill level, I've proven it to you. And here's the thing. If I took $15 a page, from a publisher, they're going to go, oh, that guy's worth $15 a page. I don't need to pay him any more than that. They're going to assume you want more work. They're going to hire you for the next project. Guess what they're going to pay you? $15 a page. Like, you're going to be their $15 a page guy. Like, the thing that I'm trying to convey to you is, like, it's scary to shut the door when there's some money coming in, but, like, until you shut that door and you go, no, I'm not your $15 a page guy. I'm your $40 a page guy. I'm your $60 a page guy. Until you shut that door, like, you can't go over it. Like, when you take a job, and I didn't mean for this to turn into a lecture, but when you take a job and you are committed to doing 20 pages at $15 a page, that means in 2 months, when you get another job offer at $60 a page, you can't take it. So there's a 100% risk reward. Even at, like, a high level, like, I do this all the time where I'm like, I'll get offered a gig. It'll be a little lower than what I normally get. And I'll think to myself, can I not take this and not work for a month or two in hopes of getting more down the road? And navigating that is very tricky. And I don't fault anyone for trying to, you know, take things or not take things. You know, everybody's got to do what they got to do. But this is the raw numbers of what I think is bottom of the barrel page rate. And this is also, like, there's a larger discussion here. That is, which I'm going to say in a second. I'm going to catch up on chat. Know your worth is something people need to understand, for sure. Absolutely, Charlie. Charlie said, can I also say, as someone who has hired people, you get your best when you offer real money. 100%. Like, if you come to me with real money, I'm going to go be above and beyond for you. If you come to me with, like, money for me, I'm going to be like, no corrections. You know, like, cause at a certain point, it's like, my time is valuable. And, like, if you're not paying me enough to do, like, 3 rounds of corrections, we're not going to do 3 rounds of corrections. Like, that's just the reality. I think it depends on the legacy that, oh yeah. So, okay. People respect you more when they're paying well for your labor. 100%. And you know what? Like, people who don't pay well, like, I don't want to fucking do work for. Like, I don't want to perpetuate that. I don't want to help them out. You know, like they have like, everybody talks, and you cultivate a reputation of, like, that's the guy that took advantage of me. And that's not what you want to do either when you put together a book. So like, we're looking at these numbers, right? And so I'm sure that a lot of you are sitting here like, holy shit, like this seems like a lot. And you know what? It is. There's like there's another set of numbers here that's like, okay, I've heard Nick's lecture. I want to hire people who are good at their job. Like, what does this cost? Okay, $60 a page per for a colorist. Penciled and inked, we're gonna go $240. Oh my god, that's $300 a page. 22 pages. We're at $6,600 per issue. Like, so if you're a writer and you're trying to figure this out, you're at $6,600. Right? How much is your time worth? Like, you obviously want to get this thing off the ground. You're fronting the money for it. Like, if you're ready to just like go all in, you don't have to get paid. Like, this is how much every issue is going to cost for you. If you're like, no, I do need to be paid for my time, I do want to be like compensated, then this page rate's going to go up. This issue rate is going to go up. And then there's other costs of like, are you hiring an editor? What does the editor need to be paid? If you're going to, say, I have no idea what editor rates are. Like, I can't even speculate. But like, hiring an editor is a good idea, just to like bounce ideas off of, double check the work, all that kind of stuff. You might take a job at low pay if you need the work, but you wouldn't respect them and ditch them as soon as you outgrew them. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's the reality of it. When I worked for a company that was low rates, and it was bizarre. They made me sign a contract per issue rather than for the arc because they expected me to leave them at any point. And I assume that they have had colorists who just ghost, like, no problem. 500 for 1,000 per editor. So we'll say 750. We'll say 750. So we're looking at, what is this? Math. We're looking at this per issue without paying the writer. Now, let's plug that in. And we're not talking about, like, I haven't even touched, like, what it costs to print the book. I haven't touched, like, if Image puts it out, like, what their fee is. I don't know if Dark Horse has that. This is, like, stuff that you have to negotiate. $7,350. We're going to divide that just by $4. This is how many units you have to move. Like, at this rate, saying that, you know, we're putting it on magical paper that doesn't cost anything, and it's stapled together for no money, you have to move a little under 2,000 issues just to recoup expenses. And this is a real thing. And this number right here, this is why rates are going down. This is why people are like, well, I can't pay, you know, $6,600 for the art team because we're only going to sell 500 issues. And my response to that is, well, it better not fucking be in color because you're not going to be able to afford to pay them. You're not going to be able to afford color. You better sell 500 black and white issues that, like, you know, you penciled and inked yourself because, like, sorry, man, like, the economics of it doesn't shake out. Or if you have money on the side that you're like, I just want to dump it into comics and pay people like a living wage, a good art team, like, I don't care if it makes money or not, that's fine too, you know? I fucking forgot the letterer. See how complicated it is. Like, I'm assuming the writer is lettering it himself, which, fucking, man, don't do that. Because, like, it breaks my heart. I read a lot of comics, and it breaks my heart when I see somebody put together a great art team, and then they just murder it with some terrible letters. So I don't normally put together books. Like, I'm usually just living in this space, which is why I forgot the letterer. So this is my advice to you. These are the numbers that I have available. Like, I think that if you are looking at this and you are like, holy shit, I'm not getting paid what I deserve, my advice to you, talk to your editors. Like, re-up, renegotiate, get what you're worth. Because, like, it should not be this way in this industry. It should not. You need to be paid what you're worth. And, like, this is the bottom. Like, that's the bottom. From there up, you start to increase in quality to top tier rates. So, I don't know. This is just kind of like something that I've been thinking about in the last couple of days, and something that I wanted to put in black and white so that everybody can see it, everybody knows what's going on. And I wanted to put this is going to be, just this discussion is going to be clipped and put on YouTube, because I want you guys to understand this, to understand the math. I want you to know what it takes to make a comic book. Do you ever think that's why the numbers of foreign artists grew so much in the last 20 years, because besides the internet? Yes, I do think that's part of it. Yeah. See, but here's the thing. Letterers can do a ton of books a month. I think they, when you visited DC, they had 3 people in a room doing like every book. Also, if you're not getting paid to the page rate you should at least get equity in the project. I mean, equity in the project is a whole other discussion. I kind of think that, like, that's a really intense moving target, because equity in a shit product doesn't mean anything, you know? And if you don't necessarily have the, like, the right wherewithal to evaluate that, if you can't understand, like, why a project like 4 Kids in a Bank gets greenlit for a movie, like, if you don't know why Stumptown is now a television show, then, like, you probably shouldn't be negotiating. Like, obviously get what you can get, negotiate equity, but, like, you shouldn't be, like, banking on that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah, foreigners have always been hired by Big Two at lower wages. So here's what I will say about foreigners competing in this space at a lower rate, because the American dollar does better in foreign countries. You have the ultimate ability to beat foreigners in this market, in that Marvel, DC, like, fucking every company is here in America that is gonna, well, except for like manga companies and there are European companies. What my point is this: there are a ton of American comic book companies here in the United States. There are a ton of Comic Cons here in the United States. There are human beings that you can meet and hang out with that are making comics here in the United States. And if foreign artists are willing to work for less, they're never going to be able to, like, come to shows, especially if they're making very, very little. They're never going to be able to come to shows and make those real connections and, like, make friends with people in the industry. Like, I just booked a gig just recently because the editor and I get along really well. And, like, we've talked at shows and we've shared a beer and, like, you know, she knows who I am, you know, that kind of thing. I don't think that, like, the human connection can be, like, underscored enough. Like, you need to go to shows if you want to get these minimum rates, because that's how you're going to make these, cultivate the relationships that are ultimately going to pay off in these ways. Yo, get me a letter. Okay. All right. We're moving on. How long did I talk about this? A fucking hour. Good God. Here's the Cliff Notes right here. This is the rate. Just pay him $60 a page. God, I need to talk about an hour for this. Yeah, obviously this is a very complicated thing. And you're also going to want to figure out, like, this exact number for yourself. Figuring out the monthly income is like the critical step. Like, what's your goal monthly income? What do you need to get everything made? I just real quick, I just want to talk about this. I want to get out of my comfort zone, and the only way to do that is to, and you know, when you're doing, man, talking about page rates. So you're doing $80 pages a month. When do you have time to do this? Work on stuff outside of your comfort zone. Grow as an artist. You need to cultivate that time. If you are working on stuff that's like 20 or 30 bucks a page and you're just like, I'll just take 6 books. Guess what? You don't have time for anything. Like, I hear a lot of colorists. Do colorists get royalties off of books? Yes, but it depends on the contract. It depends on the company. And the royalties are not great, at least in my experience. Although it really does vary from project to project. I've heard some colorists be like, well, seems like the X factor is those 80 pages. I should just do 160 pages. And it's like, when I hear that, it makes me want to die inside, because like, when you do, we're going to talk about numbers again. Shit, here we go. It makes me want to die inside, and this is why. We agree that in a calendar month, there are an average of 30 days. Every day has 24 hours. This is really patronizing, and I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like this, but emotionally, this is where I'm at right now. Okay, you got 30 days, you got 24 hours a day. You need 8 hours of sleep. So you need 8 hours of sleep. God, numbers. You got 16 hours of waking time. And we're talking about, like, you know, straight up, like, you're from the moment you're conscious. Okay, so like the 16 hours is really, really loose. Most people get a work day, like a full-time work day is 8 hours in a day. So like, you can work more. And when I was younger, I worked a lot more than 8 hours in a day. Now that I'm getting older, it's tough for me to do that, just because I'm tired, first of all, and second of all, like, it's exhausting and it's non-sustainable bullshit. Oh, I can't live off this hourly rate of $40 a week. I'll just work 80 hours. I gave myself a raise. Yeah. 160 pages over 4 weeks. Yeah. So like, okay, you look at this and you're like, okay, I'll just work harder. You know, you're like, instead of doing 80 pages in a week or 80 pages in a month, I won't even go full 160. I'll just do 6 books. So 6 times 20, we're at 120 pages. You get 8 hours in a day. This is why I always say that comics is like, as far as like what you're able to achieve and the kind of art that you're ready to put out, it's all a numbers game. You got 8 hours in a day to work. Solid good hours. You're going to work, we're going to say Monday to Saturday. You get 1 day off. So 6 days a week. So we're doing, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. Hold on. I gotta figure out how we're gonna do this. All the other math I had planned out. 120 pages. We're gonna do 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, 4 weeks in a month. 192. We're going to divide that by 120. You can spend 1.6 hours on a page per page. If that sounds reasonable to you, like, I don't know how fast you are. That sounds unreasonable for me. I can, at the end of like 1.5 hours, I have a page done. It's not going to be good. We're gonna take our regular day 8. divided by 1.6. That's 5 pages a day. That's 5 pages a day, and we're talking a single day off. 5 pages a day every day for the week. And like, this is also a problem with scheduling that is this tight, is that, say you get a couple hard pages and they need a little extra time, you know, like, and you only get 4 done. Next day you got to do 6. And you're like, oh fuck, well I can't do 6. Well, I'll just try. And then it's like, oh well, I got 4 done again. Oh shit, now I got to do 7 the next day. And then before you know it, you're working 7 days a week. Like, art is a very like difficult thing to quantify as far as like averages. So in practicality, you need to build in buffers for things, which is why I say I can do 80 pages and not 120 pages. I can probably like do 5 pages and not sweat too much per day, but I can't do 5 pages a day, 6 days a week for a month. Like, that's a totally different game. I have done 5 pages in a day. Every day is not like that. I've done 3 pages in a day. You know, sometimes you just get bogged down in corrections. Sometimes you get bogged down in cover stuff. Sometimes you like, you know, sometimes just like life gets in the way and you're like, you know, I don't know, like running errands, like going grocery shopping, like that kind of thing. Like enjoying the 4th of July. You should be able to like have a cookout and have it not emotionally wreck you, you know? Yeah, you get a cold. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna catch up on chat. Showers and eating is for losers. Robot performance. Yeah. Most pages take longer than an hour, though. Yeah, 100%. I always thought that a page takes, and like, you might look at this and you might be like, 8 hours. Maybe I can take Saturday off and I could just work more per day. It doesn't really work that way. Like, and I always thought of comics as like, oh, fucking art, like, I'm my own boss, I'm gonna wake up whenever I want. No. Like, I'm in the chair 8 a.m. If I have projects ready to go, 8 a.m. Because I'm working 8 to noon, and then I'm working noon to 6 when Shannon usually gets home. We hang out and make dinner. Invest in the people around you, for fuck's sake. Do not destroy all of your relationships because you're like, I need to do more pages because no one will pay me a living wage. We're entering like a whole other like problems with health and healthy well-being. And this is the thing. If I did this for a long time, and you know where it got me? In a depressed hole where I was making terrible art. And that's not the goal. The goal is to make good art and get increasingly better page rates. This is the truest thing ever said. You admire your ability to wake up at 8. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's 9. But like, this is what hours does this break down? 9, 10, 11, 12. This is 4 hours. And then 12 to 6. Oh, this is like 1 to 6 because you need to eat some lunch. Is another 5 hours. So I work about 9 hours a day. Sometimes if I wake up at 9, I'll work 8 hours a day. Like, working more than this, there is a limit to the amount of like good, healthy decisions I can make in a day. Like, when I get tired, I lose my objectivity and I make shit art. And I know that about myself. You know, when I work, sometimes, very rarely, I will work about like 8 to like 9:30-ish. I like eke in an extra hour at the end of the day, but like past 10 o'clock, I'm just a zombie. And there's some work that you can do as a zombie. Like, some stuff is like unconscious, going through the motions. Like, I can prep pages that were flatted in like terrible ways. I can prep those for tomorrow. I can do that as a zombie. But like this life right here, you know, where you're like, I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m. and I'm going to work until 12 at night, is not sustainable to have a healthy, normal, regular well-being. And you may feel like you can do it as a 20-year-old person. You have the energy, you're ready to go. But from my experience, I thought that too, and all it got me was like making kind of grayish pages, being depressed, and like not having good relationships around me. So I think that a lot of this is a numbers game in a way to like get a good page rate, but also a numbers game into like negotiate a good life, negotiate sustainability. That's the name of the game. The idea isn't that like right now you can do 120 pages and have a living wage. The idea is that you should not have to overwork yourself into the ground in order to have a living wage. And the only person who can push for a good page rate for you is you. Like, you have to ask for it. And if they can't give you a good page rate, you need to like spend time looking elsewhere for a good page rate. Or you need to spend time like, and this is another whole conversation of like, so say you decline a decent page rate, or say you decline a low page rate, and you're like, give me something better. I'm not your $15 a page guy. I'm your $60 a page guy. Give me something better. What if the editor turns around and goes, your work's not good enough to warrant $60 a page? Like, you then need to prove that editor wrong. Like, if you're doing 120 pages, if you're doing 160 pages at $15 a page, he's not seeing you at your best. You need to be like, I need to take a little bit of time off. And I know this is fucking terrifying because you're desperately trying to make ends meet. Like, do whatever you can do. Borrow money from people, like move in with your parents, like find a way to build a portfolio that warrants that $60 a page, and it will catapult you further in your career, and it will be better for your career. Taking that breath, as terrifying as it is, will be better for your career than it will be to just grind out terrible work for low pay. Man, you can tell I'm like a little bit fired up about this. Hearing this as an aspiring inker sounds really important. I know inkers get paid similarly. Yeah. You will get sick if you work that way. Most artists have tendonitis because of bad habits at work. Yeah, I know that when like there are times, like we were talking when we were crunching the numbers before, we were talking about how, my hands like, or I was talking about how like I can do 80 pages, whatever, an opportune situation of like, I do one book 1 week, one book another week, one book another week. It doesn't always shake out that way. Sometimes I have to work very, very quickly in order to hit deadlines. Sometimes I can't things don't line up correctly, and I have to work extra hard. And when that happens, let me tell you, my hand fucking hurts. Like, I start to have like real bad pain just from just doing this like all day. It takes a toll. It's real. And like, I didn't feel it when I was 25, but I feel it at 37, and it's not sustainable. So like, figure that stuff out. Figure it out in your 20s when you're young and able to kind of like stitch everything together. At any rate, I just added another 15 minutes onto this. I thought this conversation was going to take like 20 minutes, and it turns out I have a lot to say about how much I think you should be getting and how much I think you're worth. And if you're trying to put together a book, these are real things. And if you are paying your artists at $15 a page, the life that you are subjecting them to, you are basically looking another human being in the eye and being like, I can't make your life good. I can only make it shitty. Like, here's your dream job. Now your life is shitty. And like, I know that, you're in other circumstances. You're trying to move as many books as possible. You only have a budget for a certain amount of things, like a certain page rate budget. And I get that. I get that you're like editors at smaller press companies are not bad people. But what I'm saying is like, this whole industry, especially right now, really needs to take a strong look at itself and be like, is this sustainable? can I make a living doing this? And if we are just burning through young people who don't want to stick around and because they're like bouncing in, bouncing out, like what is comics going to look like in 20 years? Like I'm almost 40. I have no idea what comics is going to look like when I'm 60 because like I don't know that I fear that we are going to see the same people at every Comic-Con for the next 20 years, that we're going to see some young people bounce in and bounce right out. And I don't want that. I want you guys to make a living wage. It was 20 minutes plus taxes and living wages. Yeah. At any rate, I think I'm going to call it because like I want to make this digestible for anyone who's looking for this information, and I don't want to keep adding to it. So we're going to work on this. We're going to work on this Nessa piece at another time, I guess. We're going to work on it next week. I have two and a half portfolios to review as well. I'm sorry I haven't been streaming. I'm really going to try to make an effort to stream more. A lot of my year, I've kind of just like plotted this out. A lot of my year for the rest of the year is going to be about getting ahead of my finances. Speaking of finances, getting ahead of my finances and kind of like figuring out how to make enough time to stream regularly. So I'm gonna try. I've been trying to stream as much as I can. Hey Travis, what's up, man? I'm loving the pages that you're turning around, by the way. I'm sorry I didn't email you back. I've just been crazy busy. So I've been taking on a lot of extra work in order to temporarily boost my income, in order to pay off back debt and make doing the stream and drawing comics a regular thing for me. So we're going to have that to look forward to, but it's going to take a little while to get there. Like anything in comics, it just moves a little slowly. You guys saw how long it takes to make a 6-issue run. It takes like a year. Shit's nuts. Anyway, guys, keep making comics. Fight for your living wage. Care about you. I'll catch you on the next one. We'll do some coloring, and I'll try to do soft rendering, and it'll be a disaster. I'll be way outside of my comfort zone, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun. I'll see you then. We'll stream next week. Later, guys.